It's been a hot minute since I did a reading wrap up, and I have been traveling. In case you didn't know, I'm actually traveling as you're seeing this right now, but I am gonna do a reading wrap up for both May and June. So these are gonna be all the books that I finished throughout those months, and I didn't read, I use air quotes, but for me, I didn't read as much books in May, and then I was traveling the first weeks in June. So coming in here and talking about, again, I'm using air quotes, only 6 books. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna wait. And then I read 10 books in June. So this is gonna be me going through the 16 books that I read in May and June. So I had a pretty good reading months when you put them together. I do have some statistics because I love a good piece of statistics when it comes to reading. So I did read 16 different books. I read a couple on Kindle, and a couple of them, well, quite a few of them I actually read in actual physical copy. I read 7,888 pages, which I think is quite a few pages to get through in 2 months. I gave an average rating of 3.5, which I think honestly is the best representation of the ratings, because I've read quite a lot of meh books this month, and we'll talk about that. And I actually didn't do a TBR jar picks my books for either May or June because I knew I was going to be so busy. I knew I was going to have so much work in May and so much traveling in June, so I didn't do that. But I did have one book on my TBR that I carried on until May, and I did read that one, and then I read 15 books that I just mood read, and you know what? I had a great time. Also, this is my normal background that I use when I film on my main channel, but I was sitting here filming this look right here, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna bring the books here, and I'm not gonna move stuff around. This is gonna make it way easier on me. So the genres that I read is that I read 8 fantasy, which is my favorite category. I love reading fantasy, and I love reading fantasy that has a little bit of a love story in there as well. I know a lot of people call it romantasy, and I do that sometimes too, but I also think it's very important to not distinguish too much between fantasy and romantasy, because I feel like romantasy is just, and I say that before and I'll say it again, it's just another way of making things that women love feel not as important. It is still fantasy, and fantasy written by men also has romance plots sometimes. I need that to be said a little louder for the people in the back. I read 1 historical retelling, 4 contemporary romances, 1 paranormal romance, 1 young adult, and 1 actually dark romance. I've been trying to dabble a little bit in dark romance, but sometimes I just feel like they are... Honestly, one of these books that I think is said to be contemporary romance, I almost think is dark romance as well. I have a hard time with really super toxic guys. And again, I've said that before, maybe it's because it hits a little bit too close to home, but I did not always have the greatest taste in men, okay? And I don't need to relive that in a book. Just because he happens to be rich in the book doesn't make things okay. Okay, that was a tangent. When it comes to ratings, I gave 3 books a 5-star, I gave 5 books a 4-star, but I gave 6 books a 3-star. And yeah, this is what I said. This 3-star is pretty much representing of this this month. And I gave 1 book a 2-star, and then I gave 1 book a 1-star, which is the book that I actually, at one point, I'll get to that in a bit. At one point, I closed the book and I yelled into the room, get a restraining order. And my husband was like, what is going on? And I was like, it's this book. Had to give it a 1-star because I cannot remember the last time I was that annoyed at a book. Maybe The Coven and whatever the second book to that one was. That book was also a choice and a half. So that was the statistics, and I did actually read quite a few books on my Kindle. I love bringing my Kindle and loading it up with new books when I'm traveling, and as I said, when you're seeing this video, I think I actually am traveling again. So I'm gonna actually sit down this afternoon and I am gonna go through my Kindle and just refresh, take out the books that I've read, get some books in that I want to read so that I can have an updated Kindle for my reading. So let's start with the dark romance that I read, because I did read it on my Kindle, and all of these books that I'm going to talk about that I read on my Kindle, and also some of the books that I'm going to talk about here, are available on Kindle Unlimited in case you are on that plan and you want to get some suggestions for books to read. So I read, it's either Wolf or Wolf.e, I'm not 100% sure, but it's by Paisley Hope. And I read a cowboy romance by Paisley Hope that I really did enjoy, so I thought I'd read the Wolf.e book as well. So the Wolf.e book is basically about a girl that realizes that her relationship with her pretty boring but stable boyfriend is not going anywhere, and she just breaks it off and moves back into her hometown, into the house where she grew up, and is basically just like, new start, I need to do something else. I was stuck in a rut in a life where I was trying to impress people that I really don't care about. And she ends up rekindling her friendship with her best friend that is now engaged to a member of a biker gang. And this again is a dark romance. She ends up meeting the president of the biker gang, and this book is incredibly lust driven. And what I sometimes have a hard time with the dark romance that I've like read, and that I don't think all authors are juggling the best way, is how do you get something that is lust driven? How do you convey to a reader that, when does it go from lust to love? Because I don't think that the authors always do a good job making you feel like they're actually falling in love. And that's what I will say about this. This has some really cool, some moments where I'm just like, you really should get out of this situation. With that being said, I didn't hate this book. I actually kind of did enjoy it because it is entertaining, but it is also all the reactions that the people are having are wildly, in a way that if my friend reacted like this in real life, I would be like, you need an intervention. Like, yesterday. So for that reason, I gave this book a 3-star. I don't think that the author does more than scratch on the surface about like the love part, but it was entertaining. I was entertained by it, but I do think that, and maybe again, says something about what kind of a life I've seen, but I do think that when it comes to dark romance, authors are trying so hard to write bad boys that we sympathize with, and I don't think that all of them are doing a good job. I would argue most of them are not doing a good job, and this is kind of what's happening with this one as well. So the historical retelling that I read was Stone Blind, and I actually did read this as part of like a book club that we had when we did our group trip to Greece. If you are interested, by the way, in joining in for our next group trip, and maybe we'll do a book club then as well, I think that would be super fun. I happen to know what the destination is, and I will soon let you know as well, because we did have a voting and so many votes came in, and I cannot wait to tell you where we're going. I am so excited. I was like sing-songing, being like super excited when I realized where we're going. So I will soon let you know about that in case you're interested in joining in on some group travels. I do have a vlog about that one up. I will leave that actually in the description box if you want to see the last group travel that we did to Greece. We read Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. I gave this one a 3-star. I think the biggest problem with this book is that it is kind of boring. This is a historic retelling from retelling the story of via like a feministic like viewpoint, and I gotta say she does a good job sometimes retelling some of these things, and just pointing out that all of these tales are written by men who really did not give a flying fluff about women. Women were accessories at best for a lot of these stories with the gods and the goddesses that were going on. So this is the historic retelling of Medusa, how she came to be, how she died, and the story behind it. And unfortunately, this is kind of stale. And I do think that when it is a historical retelling, I do think that the author should, I mean, I say this with love. I have read Homeros. I have read the Iliad. I have read the Odyssey. I had a thing for classics when I was younger. Best classic ever, The Count of Monte Cristo. If you have not read The Count of Monte Cristo, you are missing out. It is a masterpiece. The Odyssey is quite honestly more entertaining than Stone Blind. And it is thousands of years old, and that tells you something. I think that says everything you need to know about this book. Honestly, I don't hate this book. Some of the people in our book club did point out some errors with the books and stuff they did not like about the book. That's not something I picked up on when I read the book, but I wasn't entertained. There are some clever ways of putting words together that I thought was like really clever, and I enjoyed the feministic approach to the book, but unfortunately it is kind of stale. And I say unfortunately because this is a book I wish I loved. Okay, let's talk about the first book that I have as a physical copy. This is Belladonna. This is the book that was on my TBR for April. I didn't have time, so I read it in May instead. This I also gave a 3-star. This is by Adalyn Grace. This is a trilogy. There are 2 more books, but I am not gonna read them because again, it's kind of stale and I don't really care about these characters. It's almost like a historical romance meets fantasy meets murder mystery, which seems like it's gonna be great, but it's a little stale. And also I cannot begin to explain how improper the love relationship is in this one. It is literally a girl that has been legal for 2 weeks, and then it is actual death. Like the entity death. You know, millions of years old death. Can you begin to grasp the power imbalance? And he's kind of creepy and she's kind of boring. And it's just like, this could have been so good. And again, it's not that I hate it. Again, I finished it. I gave it a 3-star. There are parts of this book that is kind of entertaining. And I did enjoy the plot of this book. I just don't love the execution. Because again, it is a little stale. And I can see who this is for. I want a little bit more roller coaster than this. This is the merry-go-round and I want the roller coaster, okay? Okay, let's get into the contemporary romances that I read. Let's start with the one that I gave a 4-star, and I read this one on my Kindle too. This is Bourbon and Lies by Victoria Wilder. This one I gave a 4-star, like I said. This is about a woman that is part of catching a crook, and for different kinds of reasons they put her into witness protection program, and she ends up with, in the beginning, this is happening literally the first 2 chapters of the book, and the woman that is set into witness protection, she realizes that the cop says, we need to keep this under wraps. I don't think I can trust everyone within the police, and I need you to just don't tell anyone you're in witness protection. I'm gonna put you with some of my friends, but also keep them on as a need-to-know basis. Just stay low and I'll come get you in a bit. And she leaves her, this female cop, leaves her at a whiskey or a bourbon distillery in, I don't remember which state. Ooh, which state is this? Okay, they're in Kentucky, so this makes sense. So it's a bourbon distillery in Kentucky, and she gets to this farm, and there are the Fox brothers. Yeah, you see where this is going. One of them is a grumpy one, and she's clearly just trying to stay under the radar. It is small town, and I did appreciate also her nickname for him is Cowboy, and we all know how I feel about a yeehaw good time, okay? So we all know where this is going, but quite honestly, I felt like the writing in this book was really good. I felt like the backstories actually gave something to the characters. I thought the love story was very well written. I thought that both of the characters had flaws that still made them interesting, but not bad people. They're not even morally gray. They're just, you've gone through things, and I thought it was really entertaining. And again, there is this little bit of action mystery because of the witness protection program, which of course things happen with that towards the end of the book. And I liked it. I liked the camaraderie of the book. I liked the friendships of the book. I liked the characters of the book. I think I'm gonna download part 2 of this because of course it's brothers. There's gonna be a part 2. I don't even have to look. I already know there's gonna be a part 2. And maybe I'll read that when I'm enjoying my time on vacation. I thought this was a really nice contemporary romance, small town romance, and I liked the characters, and I really liked that it was at the distillery. I thought that was a new take. I liked it. So I do recommend this one. I give it a 4-star. Again, this is available on Kindle Unlimited if you want to have a really nice summer read as well. The next contemporary romance that I read, and this is more of a cowboy romance, and this is Tame the Heart by Ava Hunter. This one, this book could have been shorter. Let me just put it like that. I give this book a 2-star. This book goes on and on and on. This is just a short story made long. There are so many things that could have been cut from this book. And the thing is that the book is kind of entertaining until halfway to the book. This is about a woman that has a heart problem that she can't get away from. The book starts with them explaining that, and she is being babied by her brother and her father, and she decides this is no way of living. I'd rather die younger and at least have a life. So she literally runs away from them on a big road trip. She ends up in a small town, and she gets a job helping out a farm, actually with social media, which is pretty fun. And so this is a ranch that is dealing with some drama on like TikTok, I think. So she's there to help them fix their public image. And of course, there's this grumpy cowboy thing. The problem with this book is that they end up together too quickly. And the side plot, there's another threat to this ranch. The side plot takes up, plus her health conditions, take up the second half of the book. And I don't want to say they're not interesting enough, but they're not interesting enough, which makes the second half of the book so stale. And she makes some incredibly selfish decisions throughout this book, which makes you not like her. I ended up finishing this book not liking the main female character because of some of the choices that she makes. And I think that, like, yes, she should be selfish to a point. She ends up hurting people with her selfish feelings. And this guy, quite honestly, I'm going to be the one to say it, he's too good for her. So annoying. I think that this book, the last 50% should have been 15%. I said what I said. That's why I gave it a 2-star, because the second half of the book, it's not a good book. I'm sorry. The first half of the book, that was nice. Second half of the book, that could have been an epilogue. It's like, wrap this up, let's take this baby home, I can't read about this anymore. So the next contemporary romance I read was the first book that I read then by Paisley Hope, and this is Holding the Reins. I read this book out of a recommendation. I think her name is Belle Reads or something. She's an Australian booktuber. I love her channel. I think she has such a way of describing books. She seems like just a good time, and I love her. I love her channel a lot. So this is about a woman who escapes her very toxic relationship. She has moved away from her hometown. She is in this relationship. She is trying to be the girl who got away. You know, the girl who left her hometown. She's living in a big city. The toxic relationship ends, and she decides to go back home. And this is her kind of rediscovering her bigger brother's best friend, who is a retired hockey player who is also back in his hometown, and both of them are just kind of like fighting this attraction. Honestly, this is steamy. I'm saying this right now. If you don't like smutty books, you will not like Paisley Hope. Paisley Hope writes smutty books, but I was thoroughly entertained. And also there is a scene in this book that is just their first kiss. Again, it's a romance novel. Nobody's surprised that they're kissing. Their first kiss is almost exactly how me and my husband's first kiss happened. And I gotta say, that was kind of nice to read. It was kind of fun. I'm like, wait, I've been here. So that was kind of fun as well. I actually did enjoy this book. It is not so much a cowboy romance as it is a small town romance in Kentucky. Again, a lot of things happening in Kentucky, but I did enjoy this one. And again, if you're looking for something steamy to read during the summer, Paisley Hope. And then the last contemporary romance I read is the one I gave a 1-star. This is Twisted Love by Anna Huang, and I am gonna file an official complaint with everyone who recommended this piece of trash to me. What in the actual toxic fresh hell is this? This guy, jail, straight to jail. I loathe him with a burning passion. The only reason people are fawning over him is because he is described as good looking and rich. He is toxic. He's an actual stalker. He is an actual bad guy. He is disrespectful. He is lying. He's a stalker. He doesn't take no for an answer. He is actually just a really bad person. I hate him. And he shows up in book number 2 as well, because I did read book 2 because people said that was better. It is better, but also the bar was in hell. I could write something better than this. Okay? Maybe I couldn't write a better book than this, but I could write a better character than this. This is again also brother's best friend, but there is like almost like a mafia thing going on. I think this is described to be like a contemporary romance, but it is pretty dark, and it's because of him. He sucks. And again, I read this book and I read this specific part, and I just closed the book and I screamed into the room, get a restraining order. And my husband was like, what's going on? But I hate him. Also, there is possibly the cringiest thing I've ever read in a book in my life. And I've read some books. He sings. There's this scene where he sings. Awful book. I have now read part 2 as well. I'm gonna talk about that next month. I'm not gonna continue the series. I've read 2 parts. I've seen what I needed to see. Immediate no. Okay, the next book that I have is The Wolf King, and this is a paranormal romance. This book I got because it was recommended to me through like the magic of like TikTok or Instagram, and I gave this book a 3-star because it is entertaining but nothing more. This book has the same problem as The Ever King has, which is that this didn't need to be paranormal. This plot, you could have had this plot without any of the werewolves. Without any of the magic, because that is just such a side plot in here that I feel like it's just an excuse to write paranormal romance. It is extremely romance driven. The plot is not plotting, but it is kind of entertaining. With that being said, I gave it a 3-star. I didn't hate this book. I thought it was good. Also, if you're the kind of person that you don't like reading paranormal or romantasy or fantasy because you think the world building is too heavy, this has the world building is like someone's living room. No, not really, but like the world building is thin. There's not a lot of world going on. There's not a lot of explaining going on. So if you need something where it's not much of world building, this could be good for you. Again, it's a very easy breezy quick read. I think it's a duology, or maybe there's even more books, but the second part just came out. I'm not falling over myself to read the second part, but I read the first part and it was entertaining for a beach chair in Greece. It was perfect for a beach chair in Greece. And also, me and my friend actually tandem read this together, which was kind of funny because there are some steamy scenes in here. Again, this is very romance driven. There are some steamy scenes in here, and she was listening to this book and she was sitting like this. And then eventually she put on sunglasses indoors, and I'm like, babe. It was fun to see. Again, if you like werewolves, if you want an easy breezy read without a lot of world building, this might be for you. Now let's get into the fantasy. Fantasy is my main category. That's what I love to read. That's what I read the most. I've been trying to branch out and read other things as well, but fantasy is my favorite, and that's why I have 8 books. I did quite recently have a vlog where I was trying to finish up some series that I have been reading. So a bunch of these books I actually finished in that one. The 3 books here I finished in that video, and I will still talk about them here. But if you want to see more about them, if you want to hear my thoughts about them as I'm reading them, definitely check out my latest reading vlog where I was trying to finish up some fantasy series, because I've had the tendency of starting series but not ending them, but I actually did end 3 series, and I'm very excited about that. The first one that I finally ended is The Artifacts of Uranus. This is Nisha J. Tuli, and this is the last one, and this is Tale of the Heart Queen, 4th and last one, and you can see this is a chunk. The problem with this book is also, this is a 3-star. This entire series, I gave a 3-star. The problem with this book is that this is thick, but it didn't need to be this thick. Half of this book was kind of stale, and a lot of the things that I didn't need to be this overly explained was really overly explained. And then some parts were just kind of skimmed over, and I'm like, huh? There were also some characters where I was like, even we're in 4th book, and I was like, who? I just did not remember them. And this book is not littered with character, but I still couldn't remember some of them. They are kind of tying all the threads together. Some of the things do make sense, but there is a plot, and it is more plot driven than it is romance driven for sure, but I don't think the plot is compelling enough for it to be this long of a series. This series could have been a trilogy. That's what I will say about this series. The plot isn't thick enough to be 4 books. Again, I've said this in the vlog where I'm talking about this. If you're a fast reader and you want to have a completed series to burn through, get this. if you don't read fast and you want to get like just a really great series, I would skip over this because it is just an okay series. That's what I will say. Also, the main character is making a lot of really selfish choices in this book, and she's even acknowledging, she's like, oh, I'm just killing innocents, but hey, I do what I gotta do. Yeah, for you. You do what you gotta do for you and for your man. That doesn't make it right. And I don't love that. I feel like they are like trivializing a lot of like really bad behavior in this one, which I don't love. So I really don't. The main character also, she is like every other page, she is just breaking down, crying, saying, I just want to go home, which is fine. Listen, that would be me too. I would also be breaking down saying, can I just go home? But that's not main, like, you're supposed to be here saving the world. Yes, be vulnerable, be human, but like every chapter, could we do less crying and more saving the world? Asking for a friend. I also finished the Holly Renee series. This is The Rivaled Crown. The first one was, what was the first one? The second one was Hunted Air. I don't remember the first one, but they all look like this. I gave the first book a 4-star. I gave the second book a 3-star. This one I also gave a 3-star. This is also make a short story long. I actually did like how the plot progressed in this one. I did like some of the elements that the character, like the author, put in with the characters here. And there is if you look at the vlog, there is a chapter at the end where I am just blown away. We are having quite the confession going on here on page 360 something, and I am kind of like, I am here for this turn of events with like what, 50 pages to go? Chapter 23? Oh, she's giving drama, okay? Loving chapter 23. The plot is thickening. Everything is so exciting. It's got this tempo. Everything is just coming together. And I even say that in the vlog. I wish all the chapters in this book would have been that. There are a lot of the main two characters just saying how much they love each other. And just thinking and yearning and thinking about how special they are and how much I love them. And like, okay, that's great, but does all of that mind just brain dumping, does all of that need to be in the book, in writing? And I almost, it's at the point where it's like, just show me, don't tell me, and don't tell me in that many words, okay? Because there are literally 3 chapters in a row where nothing happens in the plot but the main characters just telling each other how much they love each other, and I'm just like, it turned a little stale. So this book definitely also could have been shorter. That's why I gave it a 3-star. But with that being said, the last like 20% of that book, the plot was plotting, okay? That plot was cooking. I feel like I read 3 extremely popular books on like TikTok, Instagram this month. Maybe I'll save those towards the end. And I'll talk about the third book from that vlog where I was finishing up series, which was A Curse Carved in Bone by Danielle L. Jensen. I do talk about the 2 quotes here that I put in here in the vlog if you want to hear me talk more about that. Danielle L. Jensen is one of my newfound favorite authors. I love the way she writes her characters. I love the way she writes the banter and the dialogue. It makes them seem so human. And there's plenty of parts of this book where I'm just laughing. The first chapter where Freya is just pissed. I loved it. It made her seem so human. I loved it. This book takes on where the first book ended. I gave the first book a 5-star. I gave this book a 5-star. I think this is a duology. It's a finished duology. It's amazing. This is about Freya, who has a drop of a goddess, and that gives her special powers, and she is being used by, they call it an earl, but this is in Norway, so the actual word would have been a jarl, and he forces her to marry him because he has a prophecy where she's going to be his shield maiden and bring him to victory so he can be a king. He doesn't want her romantically though, he just wants to tie her to him, so he takes her on as his second wife. And to make sure that she's not running away or getting into trouble, she is assigned a bodyguard, which is Björn, his son. I think you can all see where this is going. This is so wildly entertaining. And the fantasy part of this one is, what if Norse mythology was true? This is happening in Norway, and quite honestly, it is so entertaining, and it is very plot driven, and the plot is great. And there is a turn of event mid this book where I was just like, I had to take a break. I had to put the book down, and I didn't come back to the book. It took me more than 24 hours to come back to the book, because I was like, I need to think about what this means to me. I need to think about what this plot means to me. Love this book, love this duology, highly recommend it. Loving Danielle L. Jensen, and I will start her other romantasy series, which is The Bridge Kingdom. I have that on this month's TBR, and I'm very excited. I also finally got to The Reign of Shadows and Endings, and the second part that I read on my Kindle, which is called Storm of Secrets and Sorrow. This is by Melissa K. Roehrich, and this is why I didn't read it earlier. These are thick. These are, I think, 4 books, and I think the 4th and upcoming book is the last book. I haven't read the 3rd part yet, but I do want to read it before the 4th one comes out. This is, and I'm gonna say this louder for the people in the back, I was told this is a 5-star romantasy. This is an urban fantasy. I was thoroughly surprised when I started reading this, and it was like cell phones, headphones, cars, guns, and I was like, the what now? I was very surprised. So this is urban fantasy. This is not Throne of Glass. This is Crescent City. I'm saying it so that you understand. With that being said, it does definitely feel like you're in another world. You're not in this world, you're in another world, but it is an urban fantasy. So they definitely have like guns and cars and phones. This one I gave a 5-star. This is miscommunication written correct. So entertaining. This is about a woman. This is about a woman living in a world where there are fae, and do they call them legacy? Legacy, which is the descendant of gods, and the legacy is on the top of the food chain. It's fae, and it is humans. And legacy have magic, and they need to draw power and restore their power and their energy from a fae. So if you are a royal legacy of the ruling families, you get basically a fae slave that has to follow you around so that you can draw energy from them at all times, and that's how the ruling families keep ruling, basically. The main female character in this book is chosen to be one of those fae slaves to one of the ruling legacy heirs, and she was not prepared for this, and it just comes from like just out of nowhere, and her entire life is turned upside down. And this book is basically about both of them realizing that the things that they have been told is maybe not the way that it is. And I'm really loving the way that the main male character is starting to have an awakening in this book, and especially in book number 2, about maybe these people don't want to be our slaves. Because they keep thinking it's a freaking honor. And it is just an interesting way of writing miscommunication. I am not talking a lot about the plot in this book, in this one, but there is a lot of political intrigue, which I love reading about political intrigue. This entire book series is just romantasy, but urban fantasy, a lot of political intrigue, and a lot of true enemies to lovers. And even in book 2, it hasn't fully been like resolved, like the miscommunication, which is why I gave the second book a 4-star, because I'm like, at some point we have to talk to each other. At some point we have to talk to each other and like air things out. But truly entertaining, really enjoying it. I really enjoy the female character here because she is stubborn, and I love a stubborn male, like female character that is not stupid. She's not stupid. She's stubborn, but she's not stupid. The 3 last books that I have here are basically the darlings of social media right now. It is Direbound, Silver Elite, and Shield of Sparrows. And I read all 3 of these books, and they have become even more popular since I read them, and I'm very excited to have read them because I feel like everybody is talking about these books right now. So let me start with Direbound. This is by Sable Sorensen. I'm not 100% sure if that's how you pronounce it, because Sorensen could be Sorensen where I'm from, so I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. This is This is like it's all okay. Hear me out. This is Fourth Wing, but instead of dragons, it's dire wolves. It is very entertaining. I love how this book starts. The main reason why I don't want to say why I didn't give it a 5-star without giving away parts of the plot. But there is a woman here. They are living in a kingdom where it's divided into the rich and the poor, and there are like guards of the royal guards that are in a special like elite troop that have bonded with dire wolves. And every now and then they have like basically an audition, and if you bond with a dire wolf, congratulations, you are now training with the elite squad. And while all of this is going on, there is a big war on the horizon with what can only be described as like vampires, honestly. And she finds herself in this trial to bond with the dire wolf, and that's basically where the book starts. She has a mother that has a mental condition. Her sister has gone missing, and she has a boyfriend that works for the castle, for the royalty. And this book, again, it starts with her trying to join the army because she wants to go looking for her lost sister. She ends up in this trial by mistake, and that's where the book starts. It is incredibly entertaining. The only reason why I didn't give this a 5-star is because I feel like she is making some pretty annoying decisions somewhere here. The last like 30-25%. And with that being said, would I have made different? I wouldn't even have made, listen, I would have made it this far. This is where my story ends. I'm one of those side characters that are not making it up the mountain, okay? But I'm just saying, would I have made different decisions? I can say that because I know what I know, but I didn't love how parts of the last like 25-30% was written. That's the only reason why it wasn't a 5-star. Very entertaining. This one has been picked up by traditional publishers, so this is getting trad-pubbed, and I do think that that is also a reason why the second part is getting a little bit delayed. The next one is actually, the next two are traditionally published. So the first one is Dani Francis, and this is Silver Elite. This has been incredibly hyped. This is traditionally published by someone who has taken Dani Francis as a pen name. And this one has been accused of being an AI book, basically, because people are like, oh my god, we don't even know who Dani Francis is. And I don't think it is that. There are parts of this book that definitely doesn't read to that. I think that Dani Francis is probably an author that is really well known in her genre, and now she wants to read they want to read, like, write a different genre, so they took a pen name to not be judged by the name that they've already made themselves in a different genre. This is what I would say. Some of my favorite books have been written by people with the pen name. Like the, what is it called? Over the Nightingale Floor. Oh, that book series, amazing. That book series, I think it's Leon Hearn. That is a pen name. That book series, immaculate. Also, let's not forget Robin Hobb, the original queen of fantasy, before there was a lot of females writing fantasy. Also a pen name, not Robin Hobb in real life. So I don't think that that's necessarily weird or a bad take. I think the main reason where people are saying that they think that this is AI is the main reason why I'm giving this a 4-star and not a 5-star. Again, this is incredibly entertaining, but this is almost like a mishmash of all the popular tropes going on right now. This is dystopian, and it has fantasy elements. Basically, there's been a mutation with humans, and some of them have magical powers that they are trying to keep hidden, because there's been a rebellion. So the humans that do not have this mutation wants to get rid of the ones with mutation. There is a rebellion, and the main female character has this mutation, and she's trying to stay hidden. And then her uncle gets caught, and this whole like just chain of events starts, and she ends up in, like, Silver Elite is like basically an elite band of elite warriors within the War Academy, and she ends up in the War Academy against her will. And there is, of course, this captain there, and there's this whole thing. What I think, for me, why this is a 4-star and not a 5-star, because it is very entertaining, and I do like the plot of this book. Is, again, sometimes it feels like they're just plopping in little jigsaw pieces in the jigsaw puzzle of the perfect just things that people love in romantasy, things that people love in dystopian, things that people love on social media right now. Okay, we need the piece with enemies to lover. We need the piece with like just extra. She's been trained by an ex-military. Let's put that jigsaw in here. Oh, she's actually secretly really good at fighting. Let's put this jigsaw. There's a lot of those jigsaw pieces that are put into this puzzle where eventually it just feels a little bit of just this patchwork thing of. It feels a little bit disingenuous almost. The main reason that I didn't give this one a 5-star is that there is a huge, they want to make it a turn of events or a plot twist, but it is so thinly veiled that I literally figured that out somewhere here. That's when this is when I figured out the plot twist. And then it happens here. So I was kind of just waiting for that to happen, and I wasn't surprised at all. The thing that did surprise me, without giving anything away about the plot twist, is that it got solved too easily. There was no tug. It was just like, oh, okay. Moving on. And that was the part where I'm like, why is this huge thing that's been looming over us for this entire book? Why is that solved in half a page? That was weak to me. That an editor should have read that and said, no, this needs more airtime. And I think that was my biggest, honestly, where I was like, that could have gotten a little bit more airtime. But if you are wanting to read about a really strong female lead, again, who is stubborn, who can save herself and isn't afraid to take some risks, definitely I do recommend this one. There are some minor faults with it. That's what I would say. So for me, this isn't a 5-star. I didn't hate it. It was entertaining. I read to be entertained, and I was entertained. I read to be entertained, and I was entertained, but not as entertained as I was with Shield of Sparrows. This, Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry, I know not everybody loves this book, but for me, this was a 5-star from chapter 1 until the very end. I don't remember the last time I was this entertained by a book from the very beginning until the end. This is a big kingdom. And there's a king and a queen, and they have 2 daughters. One of the daughters is getting to be married away according to a treaty, which is called the Shield of Sparrows. So one of their daughters have been chosen to be a sparrow, to be married away to a king of another kingdom as not collateral, but basically like, we are giving you this queen, so you can't attack our country. It's a treaty that has some magic to it, basically. So this is a romantasy. And then the second sister, she's a spare. They have not really cared about her. They haven't given her proper education. They haven't taught her anything about the world, because who cares? She's not going to be married off. She's just betrothed to one of the captains of the guard, and she knows that nothing is expected of her, and she is incredibly bored with her life. She is, of course, the main female character. The book starts with this king coming to the kingdom to meet the sparrow. He looks at the sparrow, he looks at the spare sister, and he said, no, I want her, the spare sister. And that's where the book starts. So she's getting shipped away to this new country, and she's just like, I have no idea what I want. I have no idea what I'm doing. The captain of the guard hates her. The prince seems a little suspicious, and the king, her father, asks her, well, now your sister was going to be a spy for us. Now you have to be a spy. And there are plenty of parts of this book where she's just like, I didn't get any kind of preparation for this. I don't know how to fight. I don't know how to lie. I know nothing about these kingdoms because nobody taught me anything. And I love that she's just so self-aware, where she's just like, I am the worst spy ever. There is a looming threat over here about like beasts that come every so many years and attack the kingdom, and you need to be protected against the beasts. This is not heavy on magic, which is one of the things that I really love about this book. It is not magic heavy. It is like mystical beasts and creatures. And I really love how the author has made the characters. The characters are fantastic. The banter is wonderful. And I love the world building that she does, where she describes all the places that she goes very thoroughly while simultaneously admitting that the female male character knows nothing about this world. Everything is new to her, so you're basically finding out as she's finding out, which is something that I like, because sometimes you get a lot of like info dumping. Not this one. Thoroughly entertained from beginning to end. I loved it. I cannot wait for part 2. I am sat, I am ready, I am loving it. So this is like forced marriage and mystical creatures and just I enjoy this one. If you like the same books as me, you're gonna like this one too. I thought it was great. I will link all the books that I'm talking about down in the description box in case you were wondering, what was that book? Where can I find it? Everything is gonna be down in the description box together with my Goodreads if you want to follow me on Goodreads. And I will also link, I have some other things down there. Just check out the description box if you want to get some more info. If you want to see more book videos or if you want to follow along for my travel vlogs, also don't forget to subscribe before you leave. I would love to see you again in my next video. I will have a travel vlog from Hawaii. Hopefully I'll be able to show you some really fun things, but I hope you're having a great day and I'll see you soon in a new video.